Chapter 362, Raising Intensity. Edgar, having watched the entire spectacle from the sidelines, finally stepped forward. He shook his head slowly, a wry smile forming on his face as he stared at Orion in mild disbelief. "Young Master Orion, I must admit, that familiar of yours is certainly unique." Orion laughed softly, feeling quite satisfied with the result. "Indeed, it's surprisingly effective. I didn't think Brother Lucan would get so distracted from its insults." Edgar chuckled softly, placing a hand on Lucan's shoulder. "Looks like you discovered your new archenemy, a floating, talking fish." Lucan rolled his eyes, sighing dramatically. "Yeah right, like hell I will bicker with a goddamn fish." Edgar chuckled and decided to shift the topic. "Anyways, young master, you shouldn't hope to become too dependent on this fish. Most of the awakeners can easily block their sense of hearing, making your familiar useless." Orion nodded his head calmly. "I know, Uncle Edgar, it was just a fun little thing. The real thing I wanted to show you both is my progress." Lucan nodded his head proudly. "I can see that. You have massively improved your swordsmanship. Have you already reached the intermediate stage sword aura?" Orion's lips curled into a mysterious smile as Lucan questioned him. His eyes glinted with amusement and confidence as he calmly suggested, "Why don't we spar like the good old times, so I can properly show you?" Lucan exchanged a curious glance with Edgar, both men reading the anticipation in each other's expressions. After a brief nod, Lucan spoke up with eagerness, "Very well, young master. It's been a few days since we have sparred. Let's see how much you have improved during this time." Edgar smiled warmly, unfolding his arms as he stepped into the training ring alongside Lucan. "Indeed. Let's see your true progress, young master. Give it your best shot." The three of them stood in their respective positions, Lucan and Edgar at one side facing off against Orion. The warm midday sun illuminated the area vividly, highlighting Orion's confident expression. A cool breeze rustled gently through nearby trees, adding a subtle serenity to the hyped atmosphere. Orion adjusted his stance, smoothly unsheathing both his dual swords. Closing his eyes briefly, he concentrated deeply, channeling mana swiftly and precisely along his meridians. When he opened his eyes again, they lit up with excitement. With a gentle but firm breath, Orion activated his intermediate-grade fire sword aura, coating both blades in vibrant, crimson flames. The vivid fiery energy flowed quietly along the swords, crackling gently yet fiercely. Lucan and Edgar nodded approvingly, their gazes filled with pride. To others, Orion's rapid advancement in swordsmanship and aura mastery might have seemed impossible, but for these two seasoned warriors who'd watched Orion grow, this achievement felt perfectly natural, if still remarkable. However, Orion wasn't done. A mischievous, knowing smile curved his lips, and to Lucan and Edgar's astonishment, Orion slowly retracted the fiery aura from his left-hand sword, allowing its glow to dissipate into nothingness. Lucan tilted his head in confusion, exchanging a perplexed glance with Edgar. Both mentors seemed unsure of Orion's intention. Just as they opened their mouths to question, a sudden surge of electric mana erupted around Orion. Crackling arcs of brilliant blue lightning sparked violently, illuminating Orion's body like a small thunderstorm. Without hesitation, Orion enveloped his left-hand sword in a dazzling intermediate-grade thunder sword aura, electricity fiercely dancing along the blade, radiating a powerful and dangerous aura. Lucan immediately cried out, his voice filled with genuine astonishment, "Dual sword aura wielding? Already?" Orion laughed openly, his face radiating a smug sense of accomplishment as he twirled both weapons. "How do you like my surprise?" Edgar remained momentarily speechless, eyes wide with shock and admiration. Eventually, he managed to murmur incredulously, "Dual sword aura wielding, already? Young master, this is truly unbelievable." Grinning broadly, Orion spun both swords gracefully, his stance radiating pure confidence. "Shall we start, then?" Lucan and Edgar exchanged amazed yet excited glances. Without further hesitation, both drew their long swords, their expressions turning serious yet energized. Adjusting their power carefully to Orion's current level, they began sparring earnestly. The clash was spectacular. Orion's dual elemental sword auras, one blazing fire and the other crackling thunder, created a mesmerizing dance of flames and lightning. Each strike was precise, powerful, and full of sword aura, forcing Edgar and Lucan to continuously raise their awareness and tactical focus. Orion pushed forward relentlessly, demonstrating his significantly improved strength and mastery. Lucan and Edgar, experienced fighters with years of combat training, quickly adapted their movements to match Orion's fierce intensity. Their bodies blurred into swift, elegant motions, their swords singing with every powerful clash. After trading numerous blows, Orion suddenly halted for a brief moment, a knowing smile appearing on his lips. He took a slow, deep breath, circulating the full power of his Tier 6 mana and body cultivation simultaneously. A vibrant, oppressive aura immediately surged forth from him, radiating an overwhelming strength. Lucan staggered back slightly in surprise, eyes widening in shock, while Edgar paused mid-step, visibly taken aback. "What the fuck?" Lucan blurted out incredulously, completely forgetting decorum in his astonishment. "Weren't you at the 3rd level of mana and 5th level of body cultivation just before leaving? You actually advanced this far, this quickly?" Orion chuckled softly, eyes twinkling with both amusement and pride. "Fortune favors the daring, brother Lucan. I took advantage of every opportunity presented to me." Now, Orion raised his swords confidently, lightning and fire flaring even brighter. "Let's raise the intensity a bit more, shall we?" Edgar, slowly regaining his composure, gazed at Orion with a hidden fatherly pride, nodding approvingly. "Very well, young master. Show us just how far your courage and fortune have carried you." The sparring intensified significantly. Lucan and Edgar increased their strength, matching Orion's rising pace while carefully limiting their own immense powers to match his current realm. Orion met their heightened tempo with vigor, continuously pushing himself beyond his limits, further refining his combat instincts, reactions, and mastery of dual sword aura wielding. For hours, their blades clashed spectacularly, creating an awe-inspiring display of martial mastery and sword aura. Orion's dual auras demonstrated an incredible harmony, fire and thunder seamlessly blending in with his attacks, a dazzling display of skill that left Edgar and Lucan thoroughly impressed. Finally, with satisfied smiles, they gradually ceased their battle, stepping apart to catch their breath. Orion took a few deep breaths as his expression radiated pure satisfaction. Lucan sheathed his sword, shaking his head slowly, still mildly stunned. "Young master, your progress is absolutely monstrous. I can hardly believe you've grown this strong." Edgar chuckled warmly, his voice soft but sincere, eyes filled with deep pride and affection. "Indeed. Even I didn't think you would heal yourself so quickly and also reach such high tiers in both paths. You really are something else." Orion smiled warmly. "Thank you both for your kind words. But there is still a long way to go for me. I couldn't even land a single hit on either of you." Lucan laughed heartily, patting Orion on the shoulder. "Haha, that's because of your cultivation level. Just keep growing stronger at this rate and you will pass us before we even realize it." Edgar nodded approvingly, a fatherly smile lighting his expression as he said to Orion, "Never become complacent, that's what makes you exceptional. Keep pushing forward, young master. The path ahead is limitless for you." Orion nodded, accepting their advice deeply into his heart. They continued chatting amicably for a few more minutes, discussing minor improvements and techniques Orion could practice further. Eventually, Orion stretched slightly, sheathing both his swords. "Thank you for the spar, Uncle Edgar, Brother Lucan. It was truly enlightening. I'll head back to my room now to rest." Both men nodded understandingly, bidding Orion farewell as he turned to leave the training grounds. Walking back to his room, Orion felt a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. The day had been remarkably rewarding, and his interactions had further reinforced his determination and ambition to grow stronger. Inside his sea of consciousness, Lumi's cheerful voice resonated warmly, full of pride and gentle teasing. "Hee hee, you surprised everyone once again, master. I bet they'll dream of your lightning fire combo tonight. Orion laughed lightly. For that I would need to use my new treasure. But there is no need to wreck my body so soon. Lumi giggled softly at Orion's response, her voice ringing cheerfully within his sea of consciousness. Hee, true, master. No need to push yourself too hard after already impressing everyone today. Rest well first. Orion shook his head gently with a smile as he continued down the familiar corridor leading toward his room. The afternoon sun streamed gently through tall windows lining the hallway, illuminating polished wooden floors in golden patterns. Quietly, he opened the door to his chamber and stepped inside, carefully closing it behind him. Taking a calming breath, Orion retrieved the silent hall cube from his inventory once more. Placing it neatly at the center of his spacious, serene room, he inserted fresh mana crystals and activated the cube. Instantly, the familiar barrier surged outward, isolating the entire space from the rest of the world. Satisfied that the outside world could no longer disturb him, Orion walked over to the soft, comfortable meditation mat situated near the wide window. Bright sunlight gently illuminated the mat, making it appear inviting and peaceful. Orion sat cross-legged upon it, easing into a calm, focused state. Closing his eyes, he carefully began circulating mana throughout his body, methodically utilizing the basic mana breathing technique. Gradually, his breathing slowed, synchronizing with the rhythmic pulse of the mana around him. His aura stabilized quickly, restoring the spent energy and soothing the fatigue accumulated during the fierce sparring earlier. After a quiet period of meditation, Orion felt fully rejuvenated. His muscles relaxed, and his sea of consciousness regained perfect clarity. Opening his eyes again, he felt refreshed, the room appearing brighter and more vibrant than before. Feeling settled, Orion smiled slightly, turning his thoughts inward to Lumi. Lumi, it's been quite a while since I last checked my system screen. Mind showing it to me now? Lumi's excited voice instantly replied with enthusiasm and cheerfulness. Of course, master. It has indeed been a while. Let's see your current status together. A moment later, a familiar translucent blue-gold system screen shimmered into existence before Orion. It floated gracefully, clearly displaying detailed updates about his cultivation, physical progress, skills, and treasures accumulated since his last check. With a calm and curious gaze, Orion began carefully reading through the various sections, eager to review the advancements he'd achieved during recent events. Limitless System version 4.5, Lumi. Host, Orion Hellstorm, Primus Zalzarion Draconis. Title, Perfect Being, Limit Breaker, Heir of Two Thrones, Bearer of Twisting Fates, Elemental Freak, Savior. Age? 21/9000, Soul Age, 21. Race? Bloodline, Human Emperor, Thunder Dragon Emperor, Fire Dragon Emperor. Physique, Human Emperor's Constitution, Fire Dragon Emperor's Constitution, Thunder Dragon Emperor's Constitution. Soul, Human Emperor's Soul, Fire Dragon Emperor's Soul, Thunder Dragon Emperor's Soul. Energy Source, Mana, Soul Energy. Human Rank, Awakened, 6th Tier, / Body Forging, 6th Tier. Dragon Rank, Juvenile. Mana Channels, 54 Primal Mana Channels, universally adaptable conduits capable of channeling all known energy forms. Passive Abilities. Mark of Fate. Fire Affinity, Tier 7. Thunder Affinity, Tier 7. All other elemental affinities, Tier 6. Draconic Instinct, Suppressed. Dragon's Might. Supreme Mental Endurance. Active Abilities. Fire Dragon's Breath. Thunder Dragon's Breath. 9-Step Quake. Mana Training Method. Basic Mana Breathing Technique. Physique Training Method. Ninefold Body Refinement Scripture. Spells. Treasures. Soulpiercer Sword, Bound to Soul. Realm Guardian. Inventory. Gambling, 1111 draws used, 51,297 SP remaining. Chronicle of Trials, 3 quests. The Forgotten Archive. Limitless Ascension Field. Eye of Revelation. Orion calmly studied the shimmering blue-gold system screen hovering gently before him, eyes scanning the detailed information carefully. Warm sunlight cascaded softly through the room's large windows, painting golden streaks across the polished wooden floors and casting gentle shadows upon Orion's serene, contemplative features. His gaze eventually settled on a particular entry that caught his attention, title, Savior. After a moment of silence, he curiously asked Lumi, I got the Savior title, huh? Is this because of what happened in the small world? Lumi's playful voice chimed in immediately within his sea of consciousness, her excitement palpable. That's exactly right, Master. This new title is directly related to your actions back in that small world. Because of your extraordinary feat of saving and restoring an entire realm, you've earned the recognition of the world's consciousness. With the Savior title, people you meet will instinctively feel a deeper sense of trust and respect toward you. This should prove useful in your future interactions, diplomacy, and even negotiations. Impressive, isn't it? Orion raised an eyebrow appreciatively, nodding thoughtfully. Indeed, that's quite the useful title. It'll save a lot of trouble dealing with skeptical people, especially those in higher positions who might usually doubt my intentions. Lumi giggled softly, clearly pleased with his reaction. Precisely, Master. With this title active, your natural charisma and trustworthiness will greatly enhance your leadership potential. It'll come in handy sooner rather than later, I imagine. Chuckling gently, Orion shifted his gaze back to the screen, continuing his careful review. Most of the details remained largely unchanged, though he did notice minor improvements in the subtle aspects of his cultivation. Eventually, Orion's calm gaze settled upon a particular line near the bottom of the screen. Gambling, 1111 draws used, 51,297 SP remaining. Seeing the slowly dropping number of SP, he shook his head lightly, feeling heartache at having to spend them so quickly. It was indeed a massive accumulation, far more than he had expected to amass so soon. However, his spending had also increased with new features. Closing the system screen with a simple mental command, Orion inhaled deeply, drawing in a calming breath of crisp, refreshing air. The silent tranquility of his isolated room soothed his thoughts, helping him clearly process the incredible advancements and rewards he'd acquired in such a short span. Inwardly, Orion was both proud and slightly overwhelmed. He acknowledged that such exponential growth was rare, even among the most talented geniuses in Erthalis. However, he also understood that this was just the beginning. The path ahead remained long, filled with dangers and formidable adversaries lurking at every turn. He couldn't afford complacency. Taking a deep breath, he slowly said, looks like it's finally time to see what Wukong's legacy is. Lumi's voice lit up with eagerness, are you finally going to activate the golden headband you got and see how it works? Orion closed his eyes while saying, yes, I plan to check it out right now. If there is something that can strengthen me, then I will use that. Orion exhaled deeply, steadying his breath as anticipation tingled through his fingertips. He mentally commanded the golden headband to manifest, carefully channeling mana and soul energy toward it. Instantly, the space above his brow shimmered gently, a soft, vibrant glow emerging. In mere moments, the golden headband materialized, resting firmly yet comfortably around his forehead, its intricate patterns and ancient runes glowing subtly. The room around him seemed to fall into complete silence. Taking another steady breath, he poured more mana and soul energy into the band, causing its golden glow to intensify, radiating a luminous brilliance. Lumi's excited voice resonated softly within his sea of consciousness, brimming with anticipation. It's activating, Master. Be careful and stay calm. Orion nodded slowly, focusing his mind and breathing steadily. The golden glow gradually expanded, scattering delicate, glittering particles of light around him like a gentle, golden snow. The room began to distort subtly, space bending as if reality itself were gently folding inward. A peculiar sense of weightlessness washed over him, followed by a brief moment of profound emptiness. Orion felt his consciousness detach from his physical form, slipping gently from the confines of his room. A soft hum filled his senses, soothing yet otherworldly. After a brief moment of blankness, Orion felt himself become solid again. Carefully, he opened his eyes. The scene before him had changed completely. Orion stood atop a boundless expanse of white clouds, bathed in serene white light, both warm and comforting. The sensation of being suspended within this vast realm was both disorienting and exhilarating. Before him stood 3 places, each vividly unique and strikingly clear. The first area to the right immediately caught his attention. Countless beings from a myriad of races, humans, elves, dwarves, dragons in humanoid form, and many more, sat serenely atop enormous lotus flowers. Each being was deep in meditation, their expressions peaceful and profoundly serene. Their postures radiated tranquility, harmony, and immense spiritual clarity. A subtle, ethereal mist wafted around them, shimmering gently, accentuating the profound spirituality of the scene. Orion's gaze shifted toward the second location at the center, and the contrast was immediate. This realm emanated vibrant social energy and warmth, filled with beings who sat comfortably on exquisite furniture, luxurious chairs, plush sofas, intricately carved tables. They engaged in animated conversations, laughing, discussing, and sharing stories with smiles of pure joy. The energy was inviting, comfortable, exuding warmth and companionship. It felt like a haven, a place of rest and connection. Lastly, Orion's attention was drawn toward the third location on the left side, a grand staircase seemingly carved from luminous crystal, ascending infinitely upward. Several individuals, expressions brimming with determination and resolve, ascended the radiant steps. Each step they climbed appeared heavier, more taxing, as though each level required overcoming personal limitations. Orion noticed some ascending with relative ease, while others struggled, pushing themselves beyond their limits. Orion's brows knitted in curiosity and wonder as he silently studied each scene, deeply intrigued. Lumi, equally mesmerized within his sea of consciousness, gently voiced her amazement. "What an extraordinary place, Master. Degree oh degree, each location seems to have its own use." Orion slowly nodded, inwardly voicing his contemplation. "It seems so. The first place seems to be for meditation, I wonder what it helps with. While the second is for socializing. And the third, seems like trials. The same I had to go through to get the headband. However, I have one question." His eyebrow twitched as he looked at the dozens of people in the 3 zones. "Why are there so many people here fighting for Wukong's legacy? I thought it was going to be a trial ground, not a social ground." Lumi softly chuckled and agreed. "Hee, looks like we will need to head to the second zone to ask for more details from someone. Maybe one of the older members here can help." Orion shook his head lightly, inwardly amused by Lumi's suggestion. However, seeing no better alternative, he nodded slightly and began making his way toward the bustling second zone at the center. The white clouds beneath his feet felt surprisingly solid, gently supporting each step as he walked forward. His gaze drifted around curiously, taking in the lively atmosphere of this peculiar gathering spot within Sun Wukong's mysterious realm. As Orion entered the second zone, the animated chatter momentarily hushed, dozens of gazes briefly flickering toward him with curiosity. However, after merely a heartbeat, everyone quickly resumed their previous conversations, ignoring him altogether. Orion couldn't help but raise a brow slightly, realizing he was treated as just another newcomer, a face they would see once and perhaps never again. It was clear that new faces appeared here quite often, becoming nothing special to the seasoned individuals present. Surveying the area carefully, Orion's attention was caught by a solitary figure seated apart from the bustling crowd. The young man sat quietly, his posture upright and dignified. He had an unmistakable air of a seasoned warrior, someone who had weathered countless trials and battles, projecting an aura of cool aloofness. Strangely, no one bothered to interact with this individual, almost as if an invisible boundary separated him from the others. Orion decided he would approach him. Perhaps this aloof expert could shed some clarity on his confusion. Clearing his throat gently, Orion stepped toward the seated young man and politely inquired, "Excuse me, are you free?" The young man slowly lifted his head, regarding Orion with an aloof yet calm expression. "Indeed I am. What do you want, little one?" Orion's lips twitched involuntarily at being called little one, especially since he could sense clearly the young man before him wasn't significantly stronger than himself. Still, he inwardly shrugged it off, choosing not to fuss about the mild provocation. He calmly took a seat beside him, offering a cordial smile. "Can you tell me more about this place?" "I'm new here." The young man nodded slowly, his expression relaxed yet somewhat indifferent. "Newcomers like you appear frequently," he remarked, glancing briefly toward the bustling crowd nearby. Orion raised an eyebrow, puzzled. "But isn't this supposed to be the legacy ground of Sun Wukong? Why are there so many here?" The young man chuckled softly, amusement flickering in his eyes. "Yes, it appears you're one of them," he remarked knowingly. "Allow me to tell you something clearly and plainly. You're not special. Hundreds of others have also acquired Lord Sun Wukong's legacy." Orion's eyebrow subtly raised, but he kept his expression calm as he quietly listened. The young man continued slowly, "This is something of a secret among trial takers, and we don't reveal it in the outside world. This place you're standing in is structured as a tower, spanning multiple levels. Right now, we're at the lowest floor. To obtain the true legacy, whose nature remains a complete mystery, you must ascend this tower. However, nobody has yet managed to reach the highest floors or glimpse the real core of Lord Sun Wukong's inheritance." Orion took a deep breath, his thoughts spinning rapidly as he absorbed the information. He carefully asked, "Then, how exactly can one ascend this tower?" The young man glanced meaningfully toward the grand crystal staircase located on the left side, his voice calm yet firm. "The only path to higher floors is via that staircase. You can attempt it as many times as you want. To qualify for entry to the next level, you need to reach at least the 50th step." Orion turned his head, quickly counting the radiant crystal steps. He found exactly 81 steps ascending upward, their crystal surfaces shimmering gently in divine radiance. Puzzled, he looked back at the young man and inquired, "Then, why does the stairway have exactly 81 steps? There must be another reason behind it, right?" The young warrior nodded slowly, clearly appreciating Orion's sharp observation. "Indeed. There are rewards and benefits at every 10-step interval you achieve after the 50th step, and the 10 highest-ranked climbers on the current floor each receive an additional special reward." Orion's interest was immediately piqued, and he leaned forward eagerly, curiosity evident in his eyes. "What reward?" A subtle smirk emerged on the young man's lips, his gaze faintly teasing. "Get yourself to the 10th place first, and you'll find out." Orion's lips twitched slightly, feeling a faintly annoyed urge rise within him. Still, he held it down, instead shifting his gaze toward the serene first zone of meditation. "What about that place?" he asked, trying to steer his thoughts away from the previous teasing. The young man followed Orion's gaze, looking at the tranquil area filled with various beings peacefully meditating upon lotus flowers. His voice grew somewhat more respectful as he explained, "Oh, that's the comprehension zone. It holds limitless potential and uses. You can use it to train your techniques, comprehend deeper weapon mastery, explore your bloodlines, learn new techniques, and many other profound things. It's essentially a perfect place for refining your soul, spirit, and abilities." Orion slowly nodded, internalizing this crucial information. Just as he was about to inquire further about specifics, the young man stood up suddenly, stretching slightly. "All right, it's about time I headed out." Orion quickly stood up as well, feeling compelled to at least exchange proper introductions. "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Orion." The young man paused, glancing back over his shoulder and replied with a smirk on his face, "The name's Continuum." The moment he finished speaking, the golden headband atop his brow gleamed brilliantly, emitting soft golden light as his form quickly blurred, fading from this mysterious space entirely. Standing alone now, Orion stared thoughtfully at the spot Continuum had occupied just moments earlier. He was intrigued by the complexity of this legacy ground, and the notion of climbing the stairway ignited a burning curiosity within his heart. Lumi's voice gently broke Orion's reverie, resonating with mild amusement and excitement in his sea of consciousness. Master, this continuum person seems rather interesting. It looks like this legacy tower will be more challenging than we initially thought. Orion smiled softly, turning his gaze once more toward the glittering crystal staircase that stretched infinitely upward. Determination solidified in his chest, and he softly murmured to himself, "Then I should start with that staircase." On a distant island far removed from Orion's current realm, beneath an oppressive sky streaked with faint scarlet clouds, Continuum was crouched behind a large boulder. He had just arrived back from the trial grounds as he exhaled a long breath. I forgot to tell Orion that the stairway difficulty is based on the talent and potential of the trial taker. Oh well, he'll figure it out." Shaking his head, he narrowed his eyes as he cautiously glanced around, sensing the violent energy permeating the air. He held his breath, remembering why he had run to the trial grounds. Slowly, the golden headband on his brow shimmered gently before dissolving into ethereal golden particles that vanished into his sea of consciousness. Continuum sighed deeply, his expression relaxing slightly as he carefully stood, brushing dust from his tattered robes. Just as he began to stretch, relieved at his temporary respite, a furious, earth-shaking roar resounded from the distance, echoing menacingly across the small island. "Little bastard! I will find you." Continuum flinched, his expression quickly shifting into one of extreme annoyance as he clicked his tongue loudly. "TSK. Damn, it's really hard to make a living in this cursed world," he grumbled bitterly, casting a wary glance in the direction of the enraged shout. "I hope we can get a new group leader soon, otherwise I won't have long to survive." Without wasting another second, Continuum turned swiftly, preparing to dash toward the opposite shore. However, before he could properly start running, a series of powerful, oppressive auras exploded upwards, each surpassing the 9th grade in strength, violently shaking the very space around them. They rapidly converged on his location, locking onto him without hesitation. His lips twitched as he felt the auras rapidly rising in the air. "Aw shit, here we go again." He turned around to run with a grin on his lips as he shouted toward the figures in the sky, Hey, what the fuck? I only killed the young master of your clan, stole your ancestral treasure, and maybe dug up a few graves of your honored ancestors. There's really no need to get this mad." His attempts to placate them only seemed to infuriate his pursuers further. Angry shouts erupted from above as multiple beams of lethal energy converged and cascaded downward toward Continuum. The sky trembled violently from the sheer intensity of their combined attacks, the overwhelming intent to annihilate unmistakable. At that critical moment, Continuum exhaled sharply, eyes glowing faintly with a mysterious silvery blue radiance. Around him, the fabric of space-time rippled slightly, subtly distorting reality itself. Within this minuscule distortion, Continuum found just enough room to narrowly evade the destructive energy blasts, swiftly dodging each fatal strike by mere inches. From the sky, a cold, furious voice rang out, laced with contemptuous disdain, "You think merging with a broken time treasure will save you? Your fate is already sealed." Continuum grimaced inwardly but kept his outward composure intact, grinning from ear to ear as he called back mockingly, "Why don't you come down and try catching me first, you bunch of slowpokes?" With a surge of adrenaline, he launched himself into a frantic sprint, bounding rapidly across rocky terrain and dense vegetation, desperately attempting to escape his pursuer's furious wrath. His heart thundered in his chest, but his expression remained carefree. He cursed under his breath, thinking bitterly, "Damn it. Next time, I'll make sure the intel is accurate. Getting chased like this is bad for my heart. Even the static realm in Lord Wukong's trial ground is not enough to make me strong enough to face these bastards at once." As beams of energy continuously descended around him, obliterating rocks and trees and turning the island into a wasteland of ruin, Continuum's silhouette gradually approached the shore as he decided to jump into the ocean to get away from them. However, the wild pursuit continued intensifying behind him. Back within the peaceful, tranquil realm of the Legacy Tower, Orion calmly approached the radiant crystal staircase. He glanced upward, taking in the challenge ahead of him. The staircase gleamed brilliantly, each step emitting a subtle glow that seemed to beckon challengers upward, as if promising trials, rewards, and countless opportunities for growth. Lumi softly chimed in Orion's sea of consciousness, her voice laced with excitement and encouragement. Are you ready, Master? Remember, reaching the 50th allows you to ascend to the next level. You can do it. Orion smiled gently, nodding in affirmation. Of course. There's no point hesitating any longer. Let's see how far we can climb. Taking a deep breath, Orion carefully placed his foot on the first crystal step. Immediately, he felt a sudden shift the moment his foot settled upon the crystal staircase. An immense, invisible pressure descended upon him, layered thickly with trials aimed at his physical body, willpower, and elemental resistance. It felt like he had abruptly entered a dense gravity field, causing his muscles and bones to groan in protest, while simultaneously, his soul trembled under the mental strain. He took a deep breath as he adjusted to the initial onslaught of pressure. Even at this first step, he already felt a significant resistance pressing against him, like attempting to walk against the current of a powerful river. The elemental energy subtly infused within this resistance prodded and tested his affinities, attempting to find any weaknesses within his elemental mastery. Orion remained still for a moment, allowing himself time to adapt. He steadied his breathing, slowly and deliberately reinforcing the strength of his physique, solidifying his mental defenses, and stabilizing his elemental resonance. Gradually, the oppressive sensation lessened slightly, becoming manageable, though still persistently uncomfortable. Step by step, Orion continued upwards. Each step increased the cumulative pressure, gradually pushing his body, soul, and elemental affinities toward their limits. By the fifth step, he began to feel the pressure increasing as his muscles strained under the constant, increasing weight, while his soul felt as if it were navigating through dense fog. Still, Orion persisted, determination burning strongly within his heart, refusing to yield so easily. By the ninth step, Orion felt the pressure increasing multiple times from when he started. His breathing became slightly rough while his soul and elemental energy felt the invasive pressure of the staircase. He halted momentarily, steadying his breath, eyes narrowed sharply at the next, crucial 10th step. Lumi's voice echoed encouragingly within his sea of consciousness, her voice resolute and supportive, sensing the strain Orion faced. There will be a major test on the 10th level, Master. Be prepared. Orion nodded solemnly, breathing deeply, steeling his resolve. Gathering every shred of strength, he placed his foot firmly upon the 10th step. Instantly, the world around Orion transformed. An overwhelming, divine will surged forward, powerful and domineering. It sought to crush Orion's very existence, pressuring him with a terrifying force, attempting to subdue and dominate his soul completely. Orion's mind reeled from the strength of this mental assault, his instincts immediately rallying as he drew upon his own potent soul power, attempting to repel the invasive will. To his shock, Orion quickly discovered that his considerable soul power proved nearly useless against this force. Feeling desperation rise, he instinctively reached toward his world tree sapling within his sea of consciousness, intending to use its tremendous spiritual strength to defend himself. Yet, despite this instinctive effort, Orion soon realized that even the majestic world tree sapling could not assist him here. It remained silent, unresponsive, entirely ineffective against this unique mental test. Feeling his situation rapidly growing perilous, Orion's mind raced frantically until Lumi's voice broke through clearly and urgently, her tone serious and steady. Master, this is a trial of will alone. You cannot rely on your other powers here. Use your will, your spirit alone, to fight back. Orion gritted his teeth, understanding instantly. He forcibly released control over his soul power and world tree sapling, choosing to rely entirely upon the strength of his raw, indomitable will. Allowing the crushing power of the 10th step to strike fully, Orion's body shuddered violently under its impact. His vision blurred, knees nearly buckling from the sheer intensity, yet he stood firm. Gathering the entirety of his unyielding determination, Orion's mind roared defiantly, his spirit burning brilliantly. The violent clash between Orion's indomitable will and the overpowering divine force raged fiercely, consuming his senses entirely. After what felt like an eternity, the fierce pressure abruptly lifted, signaling Orion's hard-won victory. Orion gasped, body drenched in sweat, trembling fiercely, breath ragged and uneven. Slowly calming himself, he looked incredulously toward the people far above on the staircase, climbing upward with relative ease. Shaking his head in disbelief, he murmured incredulously, "How the fuck are these people crossing levels like this? I nearly died on the first major trial." Lumi remained silent, uncertain of how to respond or comfort him, as even she was baffled by the extreme difficulty Orion experienced. Taking several deep breaths, Orion steadied himself again, gaze hardening with determination. Accepting that dwelling on the difficulty served no purpose, he pressed onward, step by careful step, bracing himself for the steadily intensifying pressure. Each subsequent step was exponentially harder, yet Orion persevered stubbornly, pushing his body, mind, and soul to their very limits. With each arduous step, his resolve hardened further, refusing to succumb despite the unbearable weight pressing upon him. Finally, after painstaking effort, Orion reached the 19th step. His body felt nearly exhausted and his mind fatigued. With great caution and a deep, calming breath, Orion mentally prepared himself before boldly stepping on to the 20th step. In that instant, Orion's surroundings abruptly dissolved into an endless, featureless expanse of pure white, stretching infinitely in every direction. There was no horizon, no distinguishing features, only emptiness extending without end. A deep, unsettling silence dominated this timeless void, an absence of sound so intense it pressed heavily on his ears. He took cautious steps forward, attempting to navigate or reach an edge, yet no matter how far or how long he walked, he made no progress. The scenery remained unchanged, an infinite, unyielding whiteness. Eventually realizing the futility of movement, Orion sighed deeply and stopped. He seated himself cross-legged upon the intangible surface, closing his eyes to reflect carefully on his current predicament. If physical effort doesn't help, perhaps mental clarity can lead me to an answer, Orion thought, quieting his turbulent mind. Yet, every attempt at meaningful contemplation was immediately disrupted. The instant he directed his thoughts toward cultivation, meditation, or any form of productive advancement, a mysterious, invisible force intruded. This strange, elusive energy disturbed his concentration, scattering his thoughts before they could form fully. Frowning, Orion opened his eyes and carefully searched his surroundings for the source of disruption, but nothing tangible appeared. Frustrated yet determined, he attempted meditation again, channeling his mental energy. Once more, the intrusive force emerged, dissipating his focus entirely. After several more unsuccessful attempts, Orion finally understood clearly, this trial forbade cultivation or growth of any kind. Realizing that productive actions were disallowed, he ceased his attempts, remaining seated quietly at the very center of this infinite whiteness. Orion's thoughts inevitably turned inward, questioning himself. Why am I here? What is this trial testing exactly? He mulled these questions deeply, yet soon his thoughts began drifting further inward, toward his past, toward both lifetimes he'd experienced. Old regrets, unresolved emotions, and decisions surfaced vividly, hauntingly clear. His consciousness became an ocean, turbulent with memories. Past failures from his previous life, bitter arguments, lost friends, tragic misunderstandings, each resurfaced vividly. The weight of his regrets pressed heavily upon his spirit, testing the resilience of his will. A week passed in solitude, then a month, yet Orion's spirit remained resolute. Time within the boundless mental space was distorted, immeasurable and endless. Half a year slipped by unnoticed. Orion's expression was unchanging, contemplative yet resolute, enduring the oppressive solitude. One decade passed, then another, followed by an entire century. The endless silence stretched relentlessly, each passing moment a test of his resolve. Orion quietly faced his own regrets repeatedly, never allowing the solitude to break him. Even as years turned into centuries, he clung stubbornly to his indomitable spirit, refusing surrender. 500 years passed unnoticed, a vast ocean of solitary contemplation. Despite the immense length of time, Orion's inner strength never faltered. His will had grown immeasurably sturdy through centuries of isolation. And finally, as he reached this immense milestone, the endless expanse around him abruptly vanished. Reality restored itself instantly, returning Orion to the 20th step of the crystal staircase. His consciousness adjusted swiftly, yet as he rose to stand, the memories of those 5 centuries gradually faded, becoming foggy, indistinct, dreamlike. He knew unquestionably that he had spent those long centuries trapped in solitary contemplation, yet the memories themselves became blurred, impossible to recall with clarity. Orion shook his head slowly, exhaling deeply in disbelief, and murmured with humor, "So long wasted sitting on my ass." Turning his determined gaze upward, his eyes quickly steadied on the next step, the 21st.